freedom. Who doesn't want more of that? A phone that rings less, fewer fires to put out, a team that you can trust to take care of things as if it was their own, so that you can focus on the tasks and plans that really move your business forward? Well, my guest today not only values freedom, but he fights for it. As a major in the South Dakota National Guard, and he has taken what he has learned about leadership to empower his team on the dairy to solve problems, make sound decisions, and take ownership of the operation. I met up with Nick Vander Weerd, CFO of Pleasant Dutch Dairy in Brookings, South Dakota, to find out how he relates his 25 years of military experience to the leadership strategies that he implements at the dairy. And you get to hear it all here today on the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. This is the podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will uplevel your skill set and your mindset, so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. Well, today Nick shares how he empowers employees by training them to be decision makers at all levels and giving them the tools to solve problems that help save time and money. In fact, one you're going to hear him talk about today is Milc Pulse from the Milc Group, a pulsation monitoring technology that has changed the game at Pleasant Dutch Dairy. And Nick discusses the future of the dairy industry in South Dakota, how he manages risk, and his personal philosophy on resilience, positivity, and continuous improvement. This episode is sponsored in partnership with the Milc Group. The Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms across the world by revolutionizing the dairy industry with user-friendly, cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all the important aspects of your dairy into one place. Click on the link in the show notes to learn more about feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and skill management from the Milc Group. And hey, if you're heading to World Dairy Expo, learn what the future holds for dairy software by visiting the Milc Group's booth. The Milc Group will be in the exhibition hall all week in booth 4323. So go see for yourself the solutions that they've come up with to help you manage your dairy with their cloud-based software and the important aspects of your dairy that can all be accessed with the easy-to-use app that's right in the palm of your hand. Now take a listen to this conversation with Nick Vander Weerd. Just give us a little snapshot. What's the history of Pleasant Dutch Dairy?
The unique side is we're one of the few in the dairy industry to get out and get back in. It's not as common. Normally when you get out and sell the cows, you're done. We quit milking in the mid-90s, and then we actually ended up a few years later transitioning back in. And we actually took the parlor, converted to a farrowing house, and then I think 2005, my oldest brother was a mechanic in town, wanted to come back, so we converted the farrowing house back into a parlor, and then we started milking again in 2005. And then shortly after, as many in the dairy industry remember, 2009 was a very rough year. We decided we had to do something different. Our theory is get out, larger, get out. I had also, 2006, started working at a dairy consulting firm called DairyNet at the time, and then I did the financial consulting. Mostly it was for expanding dairies or financially distressed dairies, putting together business plans and obtaining financing. So at that time, a dairy family had walked in and they were looking at obtaining some loans. Well, 2009 was a rough year for a lot of dairies, and it was already far down the road. So that one, the bank was looking at, it did go into receivership. And then my family actually partnered up with two other partners and bought Pleasant Dutch Dairy. And then since then, my family, we've bought out the other two partners and then also expanded the dairy. At that time when we closed, it was around 1,200 cow. We've continued to expand, and now we're around, we have two sites up there, so we can grow into up to around 3,000 cows is roughly with utilizing our sites. And we still have some plans to continue to grow and expand. But that is our plan over time, is like anything else in the dairy industry, continue to consolidate, continue to utilize economies of scale. And I find every time we expand, the margins have always get a little tighter. But it is about truly trying to grow. I myself get better at leadership and bring people up.
So you are looking really at leadership and empowerment of people on the team as that next level within Pleasant Dutch Dairy.
There's a couple ways to do it as a leader, in methods of leadership. But some of the ways up front seem easy. It's just, okay, we'll be more structured, more strict, say you do it or else. Kind of, well, that's not always the best way to get buy-in. The harder, it takes a little bit more time to get more buy-in. Also listen to people, gather their ideas. but it also takes more time, more effort, more energy. But then you typically achieve more because those individuals, you absolutely can go the route of do it or else. But longer term, I believe a better leadership style is to utilize those individuals and ensure that we're sourcing all ideas in the long term. That way it'll continue to be done and we get there. And not that you always have to go with input, but just make it feel like anything else. When I'm in other roles that I'm in, I like to have input, like to feel like I'm heard and listened to throughout my career of my different hats that I wear.
Okay, so different hats that you wear. So we've been talking about the dairyman hat, but there is another hat that you wear specifically, and that's been your career with military.
Yes, that's the other. So January will be 25 years that I've been in the South Dakota National Guard. With that, I've had some great experiences. I was enlisted for 11 years. And then since then, I became commissioned. I'm currently serving as a major in the Air National Guard in the force support area, which is personnel and training. And then services side of the house, the first support split into two sides, personnel and training. And then services is in charge of food service, lodging, recreation, morale, and mortuary. Also fitness. I got to throw fitness. I'm in charge of the individuals who run those programs.
So at 25 years of military service, including being enlisted for 11 of those. So first, Nick, thank you for serving our country. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you continue to do. You just mentioned several of those aspects of leadership within the military and within your experiences there. How does that end up playing into what you do on the dairy every day?
I've been around some great leaders, and I've been around some leaders not that great. And I look at all three levels of organizations I am. In the military, the DoD is the largest. It's a very large organization. It moves slow. I'll call a lot of red tape. A lot of times things are put in place because somebody did something somewhere, and then you get more red tape to deal with. So it's learning that sometimes processes are great, especially in large organizations, but sometimes the downside is the speed and the lack of flexibility to understand decisions need to be made and to provide the flexibility. That's another one, and to not lose sight of it and to continue to push decisions down to the lowest level. It is a goal, and specifically in the Air Force, to push decisions to the lowest level, but sometimes the leaders, what I found the hardest ones to deal with is micromanaging, and you will find leaders that will micromanage you. I've dealt more of that in the military than I have anywhere else.
Really?
And some of that's because those individuals that move up are those who are very organized. The military community likes that type of individual, and it's very high in the military to have those who are extreme punctual. Obviously, but one of those traits is punctuality is organization. Well, those are different personalities than those who take risk, and we will see the clash of that a little bit. But I'll say that also breeds into a little bit more of the micromanaging, which can be a challenge because that's the opposite of empowering.
So where do you fall on those spectrums?
I like freedom, and it's also I know that in one of the courses I went through, they described it as they had 4 traits. It was not the Myers-Briggs. It's some a little bit different. It was called 4 lenses. And I am one that values freedom. So when I say that, I value when I'm on a trip, I don't mind agenda, but I don't let the agenda run me. It's the opposite. I like to be spontaneous. I like to think outside the box. I'll call a little bit more the adrenaline type of deals. And we're all made up of different traits. My next one down is what I'll call you think more of an engineer type. Mm-hmm. I like numbers, figures, and accuracy. So my personality will be, if I go in to make a purchase, my one side of me, is going to be spontaneous, so it's going to be instant. And so if I make that purchase and the salesman, if they can get me to buy instantly, I will. But if I shift and hold off a second, my next personality trait comes in, then I got to do a ton of research. Then I don't want anything to do with you, Mr. Salesman or Mrs. Salesman. I'm going to go do my own research, and I'm going to do a lot. And I will continue to dig and find out all the pros and cons. And I just don't, then I want something that for the value, I need the best value for that item. And I will find, that's for myself, I got to not make the spontaneous decision and shift back, because then but then sometimes I won't make a decision because you do so much research and it's tough to move forward. And so it's kind of a little, one way is too fast in some ways and one way is too slow. But
so you're able to really recognize yourself in different aspects of the spectrum of the fast decision making versus the research orientation and the risk taking versus the more contemplated approach to things. And so as you explain that and really what you've learned about yourself through a lot of because you're doing continual leadership training all the time through your military role, how does that come back to the dairy? Can you share an example of maybe be something that was a pain point that you were dealing with on the dairy, and you were able to find a solution to that problem.
The problem is where our operation is we are a little further out from, I'll call it infrastructure dairy industry. Our closest equipment dealership that we utilized was 2 hours away, and one of them was 3 hours away. Well, 2 and 3 hours away is a long ways to go for small problems and even big problems. And big problems when they show up and then didn't have all the parts or discovered they thought they did and found more wrong. But it got quite expensive. Still is. But we found that we have to continue to train ourselves and continue to bring in the expertise and hopefully to help fix these issues. Well, what we really enjoyed is in our parlor, it's a double 32 parallel, and we have 64 pulsators, is that now with the monitoring system, it's real time, that we didn't know, and even now, when one goes off out of specs, it's instant. We get an alert, and we can go fix it. Well, before, if we were on a routine, they'd come check the parlor once a month or every 30 or 60 days. Well, if a pulsator went out of spec, you don't catch it until then. And I've also found, by the way, with the monitoring system, that sometimes they out of spec and come back in, go out and come back in. So if that moment in time, that individual's checking the specs on that pulsator and it's not out of spec, which we have, and now I have data and I've had it for months, there are pulsators that just get finicky and they come in and out of specs, and we have it where it's not, it will run 22 hours a day perfect and 4 bad. And without that monitoring system, we would know that. And it's been pretty, when we have one that starts getting up there and you see the trend, it's a very simple fix generally, but without that data you would never know. And so that's one for how we operate, because of some of the limitations we have, and also because 64 monitor takes time to come in and monitor them all, and you're only getting on the spot where this system is monitoring 24/7. We've really had, I think, some great success with that, and knowing at least the other part about troubleshooting. So often when we would have an issue in the parlor or seeing our system Excel creep up, whether to problem solve with equipment or protocol, now we automatically know it's not pulsators. And pulsators was one that one time we had some issues with. And it just takes alleviates one big area when we start troubleshooting if we have an issue.
As you explain this, Nick, going back to what you shared about your leadership approach, right? Solving problems is a part of how your approach to leadership in the dairy every day. But so is what you started out with, saying empowering people. And so can you tie these things together? Like by having that monitoring system available and having that constant data and solving some of those problems that were causing other issues leading to somatic cell count, stress of additional animals that were going to need care, stress in the parlor, everything else, stress on your people. Can you tie that together into how it empowers people on your team? Has it?
That's a very easy one. Absolutely. And I say it's easy because before to test a pulsator, it would just be a little bit higher level skill set. You need the equipment. Now, we had individuals, but it also would tie up. My manager is phenomenal. He's a brilliant individual. And it would, when we had an issue, and he would take his time to start troubleshooting, because one of his very strong skill sets, he'll find the problem. Almost any problem out there, he will find it. But I tie him up, and I got a lot of problems with dairy, so I don't want to tie him up for everything. And so that now, when we get alerts, there are several people with alerts on their phones that it's no longer there is a problem. It's yes, pulsator 53 has a problem, and we can shift that empowering down to, I'll call our lower level individual to do the maintenance. It's not taking my high level, because before it would absolutely be higher level, or we had to call somebody in, and it would take them time, and then it would go down. But now it's 100. We can say, you know what? Individual, even newer individuals training to do maintenance can say, hey, this pulsator is giving us issues. There's only a couple things that's wrong with it. Upon knowing something's wrong, it's very simple to fix. We can train that very fast. And it's not training to find the problem, it's just training to fix the problem. It's empowered us to be able to definitely shift down and take what would be higher skill level individuals and not have to tie them up with that specific issue.
Nick, as you explain that, this all starts to just weave into your overall philosophies and experiences coming together. And one thing that you talked about earlier as well in the military is really empowering the lower level decision making so that the person just starting out has the ability to make decisions. How did you say that?
And I'd say people with a different level of skill set or lower level skill sets, empowering them, and it's all levels, because one of our goals is to always, I think, bring the decision making to lower levels, and to ensure you're aligned with that individual experiencing the problem, can empower them with the ability to make the decision. And sometimes decisions have to be higher, because an individual above you, and we've all had it, where if you work for somebody, they made a decision you think just doesn't make any sense. Sometimes the decision doesn't make sense, but sometimes they have more information than you. You don't have perfect information. And when you would get the full, or if you're given, or you have the discussion of why did you do that, and they give you a whole different half, or maybe three, or a lot more information, it makes more sense. But the opposite is true too. If you're not sometimes at a higher level, and you get in bits and pieces, you don't get all the information, you'll make a different decision, push it down, and it just doesn't make sense. And so always the goal is empower people at the right level, or try and push the decisions down to as low level as you can get them to. Now, there are those who want to hold information, or hold micromanagers one area because of different reasons. But organizations generally work and work better and faster if you can get the decision makers at the right level. It just in general, because it is all about empowering. Or ensuring you get the communication too, back and forth. If you need to go up one step for different reasons, maybe that individual you don't want to trust with the checkbook, I get it, but you want to make sure the communication, and have enough communication to know that when you are making a decision and you are in control of the checkbook, that you are making the right decision for your organization. Because also empowering gets buy-in. The goal also, I view, is getting your employees to feel like they're owners. That it means something to them. They are getting compensation, but they also want to view that your organization is part of theirs. Mm-hmm. Because people who are empowered and feel like owners aren't going to be as, you know what, it can get done tomorrow, who cares? You know what, I don't got to go do that, it's all right. I don't got to go pick that up because we'll just buy a new one. That's the issue of shifting from an employee who obviously doesn't care and just collect a paycheck, to an employee who does care and who feels empowered by the organization because it matters, and they're listened to and they're heard, and then they look out for the organization too. And it does matter if we go treat that cow today. That cow matters to us.
So that whole empowerment approach and training, there's the problem solving that you're training for, and there's the decision making that you're training for. And within that, that's where you find the empowerment, but then also engagement, which I think is kind of what you're referring to, taking ownership. And how would you describe what that looks like on your team at the dairy right now?
What we have found, the longer I get people to stay with an organization, the more I can get them engaged and empowered. At the lowest levels, the entry levels, those individuals do turn over a little more in our industry, in the dairy industry. Generally, I'll call it the milkers, and we guys move cattle. And we'll start there, and we generally like to grow organically. And the longer I get people, the longer I can have an organization, the more buy-in and engagement we get. But like anything else, someone's new in an organization and an entry level, it's not the same as somebody who's at a higher level, who's been there longer, who's more tied to the community, trying to find ways to continue to keep employees and treat them well. I want good employees, and I want also employees to stay. I want to treat them very well because I want them to. It costs a lot for employee turnover.
So those are ways that you've really identified of, okay, we have empowerment is one of the goals, engagement is another goal.
Absolutely.
And going back to you as being a problem solver, when you think about the next challenges that you will face as a dairyman, that Pleasant Dutch Dairy will face, what do you identify as the greatest risks to your business in the next 5 years?
There's two that come to mind. I think number one is still, I'll call it the margins in the dairy industry. I mean, like anything else, we got to be profitable to stay around. We got to become more efficient. The margins continue to compress as time goes on. If there's a black swan event, as in all our exports got cut off tomorrow, that would be a real problem for the dairy industry. Obviously, our milk and cheese price would plummet if tomorrow we were turned off for whatever reason. We hope it doesn't happen, it never happens. We've seen it happen in other industries. A lot of the livestock industries have woke up and exports were gone. And that cause real disruption in your industry. There's other disruptors, technologies. Some of those are good, but some of them can disrupt. And the other one would be, besides from the margin aspect, it's environmental regulation. I'll call it environmental regulation issues. That's not tomorrow isn't going to threat, but 3, 5, 10 years, what that looks like, how much comes from our state versus our federal. A lot of that's starting to be made in, it's bureaucrats in D.C. They are, once again, are not the lowest level making decisions. I would call it very high level, disconnected from decisions that are being made in D.C. for different operations. And in a state like South Dakota versus Maryland may have different need for different regulation. But I view that it should be more at a local level, state and local level.
So environmental is one of those risks that you identify, but then the first thing you said was margins.
100%.
So as assuming the CFO role that you do at the dairy, what are you doing about it?
Well,
what's helping? What's working for you
reduce
right now?
risk, right? We all can offload risk, right? In our role, what's your risk appetite? How much are you willing to risk? How much should you take? How much can you take? I'm very familiar with commodity markets. I also at one time worked in my consulting realm, worked with that in hedging, but because of lack of time and leveraging my time, I enjoy coming up with marketing plans. I just didn't always enjoy executing them or continue to execute. So I'm working with a firm now, and I actually meet on a regular basis every 2 weeks. We meet and go over our marketing plan. That's part of reducing risk. Right now, if you're 100% open to the market, there's risk and reward. There is absolutely, the margins could get better, but they could get worse. And so we're looking and continue to look at how to offload that risk to a third party, and that's hence hedging. And the long-term goal is for any companies is to be profitable in the long term. You got to maintain your margin in order to do that. In our industry as dairy, a lot of that is milk versus the feed costs, your income or feed costs, and those are two risks that can be reduced through hedging. So we do continue to meet on a regular basis, continue to put a plan, refine, execute the plan, and I don't have the perfect answer. It's not perfect, but it is a way to reduce risk. In other industries, it's just a given. We're not there in the dairy industry, but there is ways to offload that risk, and there are those that you don't necessarily need to, but you also recognize that you have, I'll call it deep enough pockets, or you need liquidity to weather the storms.
Yeah. So you spend a lot of time on the risk management part of your business.
More than I used to.
Yeah.
More than I used to, and that's one one that become more and more disciplined at. Even now, continue to get better numbers, more accurate numbers, better data, make better decisions, to have more confidence in saying, hey, 12 months out, yes, this is the amazing margin, much margin we know we'll have. Because it is much easier to have your lender stay with you when you're profitable versus not. And that's just a general rule in life. It's easier to stay in business when you're profitable than you're not.
What's the attitude and the atmosphere like in South Dakota for dairy right now? How would you describe it today?
I describe it as positive. I've been in the industry there my whole life. We definitely have a lot of people coming in. I'd say positive because we continue to have dairies come in and people continue to expand and grow. But the other one issue is processing. Processing is the big issue for us in South Dakota. You start becoming what came first, chicken or egg. We need cows to have processor. We need processor to have cows. At the moment, every time a processor announces expansion, it's full again. It's full almost in because we do have a lot of individuals not only who are already there, who want to expand, new dairies coming in. And truly one of the challenges, and this is a dairy there, and I haven't touched on this yet, it is hard. One of our key challenges, it's hard for me at my size to add 500 cows. That's very challenging. In fact, it's very challenging for me to do. Not from a regulatory side, that's easy. From a milk processing standpoint. It seems to me, and this is outside, that if I were to add a 5,000 cow dairy, or 10,000, it's much easier for me to get into processing space than for me to add 10% more on my herd or 5% on more. Because I am under a quota system with Ship to Land Lakes. I have to go buy that. But that's something that a new dairy would not have. A new dairy, a new operation of some size, they would be shipping directly to a processor. They wouldn't have that barrier to entry that I have. I have a huge barrier, and dairies like me, a very large barrier to entry to get additional milk shipped to a processor. And I'd say that's probably a little bit of friction there between operations that are there ongoing and wanting to expand, and those who can come in and find their way in without that barrier to entry, because it's a huge financial barrier.
So what do you think growth looks like for your dairy in the next 5 years?
We continue to plan to grow, but 5 years ago, we did not have any barriers to growth of production, or maybe 7. It was 0. I didn't plan on it. Now as we grow, that is a part of the plan, is that we have to secure more quota or find a different processor, or if it was a big growth, we add on a whole new parlor, we may be going direct. That's part of the plan, is finding a way to add the milk process. Now there's plans for processors to grow and come in, but it's not like tomorrow a processor can be built. We can build dairies so much faster than you can build processors. Processors generally, it takes a long time for a processor from start to finish. And so since I don't know of anyone that's building brand new today, I'm assuming the earliest that a brand new processor would be there processing milk would be 4 to 5 years at the earliest, if there was plans in the works today, and I don't know if there are. I'm not privy to that.
So that's definitely a challenge in the future as well.
It is a challenge. It's one that can be overcome. Dairies continue to expand, and we do plan on looking at finding ways to continue to become more efficient. And growth is one of those ways to become more efficient. So we plan on it, and I'll find a way. But it's just one that's a slight challenge that we used to not have. Yeah. And it's there today that you have to find a way and a solution as you grow to have people process your milk.
Yeah. All right, Nick, this is the part of our conversation where I have 5 questions that I ask you. So this is getting to know you a little bit more on the personal level. And so question number 1, up level 5, what does success look like to you?
I think in the first one is success looks like finding happiness and joy in life. I say that's what success looks like. And that's different for different people. But as I think and I look around, as I interact with others, some of it is built around your family and friends to ensure that you've made enough time, and they definitely bring joy in life. They bring joy in life. I know definitely as you continue to get older. And so some of this has shifted what brings joy in your life and for different people. Earlier we talked about freedom of time, freedom of money. It's yes, some success is financial, but that's not the pure root of success, I don't believe. I believe that helps bring some of those things, but if it's just that, there are a lot of people who we would look at them and see they're successful, but they're not happy. They're not joyful. And I enjoy being surrounded by great people, positive people and happy people. And I enjoy my family and my friends, my employees. So
yeah. So success is a lot about the people you surround yourself with.
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, an outlook you have in life. So.
All right, question number 2, in 3 words. How do you want to show up each day?
Positive attitude and resiliency. And so it's positivity, resiliency, and not give and can do. And there's maybe some better ways to put can do. But I really think so many of the problems we overcome, like in life, as we look around, life has a lot of pain. I know I just mentioned joy, but for majority of people, and I would say argue almost everybody in life, no matter what their status is, where they come from, social, economic situations, life has a lot of pain with some joy. And truly, you got to look at to have joy and find joy, because we all are going to lose people in life, and that's we're all going to face some type of trauma, but we got to look and to go through that. It's still about, in my view, being positive. How do we find solutions to that and be resilient and to that way we can bring answers and solutions to those around us versus dragging down those around us. And it does make a difference to me when those are positive, because we're all going to face them, but it's so much easier to face challenges when those around you are positive, and it's easier to work your way out of those. And some days I've had things stacked onto us, and I remember there was a day that we had a lot of problems on our operation, and we had 2 major issues that were pretty challenging, and the third one got thrown on top, and all in one day. And it's kind of like, are you kidding me? But with the positive employees I have, and my manager is phenomenal. He's such a great, no matter what, can do, positive attitude. And when we're in there, and one of those working in manure, we're like, what else could go wrong? Everything, and if it does, we'll solve it. We'll get this one. We'll knock the other ones out. It just doesn't. We throw more at us, we'll get it. And the bottom line is, no one's injured, no one's hurt. Which those things happen, but we're here and we'll get these solved. And tomorrow we'll continue to solve them. If we don't get them today, we'll get them tomorrow.
And that sums it up: the positive attitude,
yes,
the resiliency, and the can-do, get-it-done attitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question number 3. Who are the thought leaders that you follow?
One that just comes to mind right away would be an individual. Jordan Peterson is one that's had some influence on my life, and I think he's such a brilliant man that sometimes I have to listen to what he says several times that I fully digest and understand, because those words are much larger than the ones I use. And definitely I'll say, when I reference that life isn't full of joy, it's come from him, to recognize that we all face a lot of hardships in life, and to think that everybody that it's just you, it's everybody, but you got to find joy, and joy is there, but some of it is your own attitude. So.
Yeah. So it's funny. I had a feeling you were going to say Jordan Peterson. Okay. Just knew it.
Just knew it. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that came right away. So
yep. I called that one in my head.
Okay. Well, it definitely won.
When you talk about, just again, putting the pieces together, you talk about hardship and joy, and it reminds me of the word passion.
Yes.
And if you ever looked up the definition of the word passion, do you know what it is? Suffering.
So I did. That was not what I was not expecting. Suffering.
And you think about, as a Christian, and I know you are too.
Yes.
If you look that word up, the definition is suffering. And there's the Bible verse that says suffering produces perseverance, right?
Yep.
And perseverance, endurance, and all the good things that come from that. But we're not here to live happy lives. We're here to find joy, and to spread joy and hope, and find it.
Yes.
Right?
And so I'm going to make sure it's a pretty easy example of it. It's one like, if you want to find joy or you want to find wisdom, right? And it's one that I like to be more wise. When you pray to become, hey, bless me with wisdom. But the thing with the human brain is like, it'd be so nice. You pray and boom, God instills wisdom on you. But to ways to do that, the journey is sometimes the journey. So when you do that, I think that sometimes it's, okay, you want wisdom, Nick? Okay, well here, we're going to give you a bunch of challenges. And they're going to be ever increasing challenges and harder and harder and harder. And when you look back over the years, you're like, yeah, I am wiser. But how did I get wiser? Because I faced a lot of things. But sometimes when you ask for something from God, you're going to take it out. It's not how you get there. You didn't fully know what you're asking for. Later, it's one of those that, because I have a simple human brain, and it's like, well, why can't I just get it? Well, sometimes you got to go with the experiences, and then you have to earn it, and you have to want it. Sometimes you really don't want it. So you say, you know what, that isn't probably worth it to me. That's where perseverance comes in. But it's so interesting to look at different ways when you think you desire something, but to get there isn't just this easy little path. It's typically a much different path than you envisioned.
Yeah, so true. And okay, question number 4. What are the words you live by?
What are the words you live by? Always find a way. I do believe you find a way, build trust, and forgive. And forgiving and trust or doesn't always mean you need to be blind to trusting somebody, but forgiving, we need to find ways to work through and forgive people. We're humans, we make mistakes. And then in addition, I think relationships, to build trust, and I find a lot of joy in not only joy, there's so much I've learned and from those that are around you. And you need to build trust to really to get to know somebody and really get to know there's some brilliant people out there who aren't willing to share very much with you until you build trust. And in order to do that, you need to instill confidence, confidentiality, and just be able good at asking questions about somebody like you are. So,
hopefully you built some trust. Yes. All right, and question number 5, the last question, I promise.
Perfect.
Ish.
Yes.
What's your next up level? Personal, professional, what are you looking to take to the next level in your life?
I want to continue to improve. I want to continue to learn, become more knowledgeable, become wiser, be better at empowering those around me. As I talk about that, I would like to improve at bringing the best out of those that I'm around, because I think sometimes I definitely can improve upon that. Mm-hmm. I got to find a way to help be uplifting to those around me. What's
it going to take?
It's going to take continuing to educate myself in that realm, but also just to be on that journey. It is to spend time on it. So it's going to take dedicated time every day. It is probably finding someone, truly a mentor, to help guide, to at least someone to, whether it's a mentor or coach, to be able to hold you accountable for it, is what it takes to truly do it. Because without that, we can all say some grand things. If you don't truly do it and have somebody hold you accountable or hold yourself accountable, having a way to do it, that's what it takes. It takes a mechanism to do that.
And that's your next up level.
Yes.
Well, Nick, this has been great. Thank you so much for all you shared with us. More than just dairy, more than just what we started out on. But any final word?
Thank you. I am very thankful for those who have been in my life, helped me get where I've been. My parents, my wife, my 2 daughters, and truly in those in my operation. There's board members that have been extremely generous with their time and patience with me. My employees have been, my manager and my brother. I can't do this without those individuals. Those individuals truly they put up a lot with me. I have a lot of shortcomings, and I'm so thankful. And that's what truly, I really am. I've been blessed with so many wonderful people in my life. And thank you for your time. I'm just thankful for the time that you've given me.
Oh, and that goes both ways. Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome.
You just heard from Nick Vander Weerd from Pleasant Dutch Dairy in Brookings, South Dakota, and about the lessons that he's learned in the military that he is putting into place to empower employees to be decision makers at all levels on his dairy, and how that's opened up a world of freedom so that he can not only serve our country, but also serve as the CFO of Pleasant Dutch Dairy. And if you're intrigued to learn more about the pulsation monitoring technology that Nick is using in his parlor to save them time and money at Pleasant Dutch Dairy, make sure you check the link in our show notes for Milc Pulse. This episode is sponsored in partnership with the Milc Group. Milc Group is a dairy software company that brings real-time actionable data to dairy farms across the world by revolutionizing the dairy industry with user-friendly cloud-based software. One by Milc Group is the all-in-one app that brings together all the important aspects of your dairy into one place. Click on the link in the show notes to learn more about the feed and animal management software, people training, dairy facility monitoring, and scale management from the Milc Group. And once again, if you're heading to World Dairy Expo, make sure to find the Milc Group in the exhibition hall at booth 4323. And thank you again for listening to this episode of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and if you like what you heard today, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating or review. Those ratings or reviews help us to keep going and growing here at Uplevel Dairy.